Give me a few seconds. It's still streaming. We don't have any attendees here. Maybe I'll just start webinar, I think.
It is started.
Sir, you can start the introduction and then I will let Vichar to come in.
Yes, sir. Namaskar. Welcome to another edition of CG Meter. This is 2023's first edition. We are super excited to have Mr. BN Vichar with us today. But before Siva introduces him, let me just share some insights about ASIFA India. So I'll just give you a brief outline about ASIFA India through this heavy.
ASIFA India welcomes you all. ASIFA India promotes opportunities for the artists in animation all around the world. Association International Do Film De-Animation, officially called ASIFA, a professional body recognized by UNESCO, devoted to developing film animation both as an art and also as an effective means of communication. ASIFA was founded in 1960 in Annecy, France, and today enjoys representation from over 42 plus countries and footprints in 70 plus countries. Today, the association is also connected with the most important animation festivals in the world, namely Annecy International Animated Film Festival in France, the Ottawa International Animated Film Festival in Canada, the Hiroshima International Animation Festival in Japan, and the Zagreb World Festival of Animated Films in Croatia and more. Visit ASIFA International for more about IED at www.asifa.net. ASIFA India received its official charter on November 25, 2000, and it aspires to the same ideals and goals as the international organization. In this spirit, throughout the year, ASIFA India is involved in a lot of activities like workshops, seminar, case studies, film screenings, the popular monthly CG Meetup series, community activities, and educational events that are intended to help the Indian artist. ASIFA India team comprises of Saraswati Vani Balgam, President Emirates, ASIFA India, creator, writer, director, Dancing Atoms, a boutique preschool and animation feature film creative development studio based in LA and India, mentor and consultant, Epic Games, Unreal collaborator, evangelist, mentor, Sony Talent League 2022, collaborator, SIGRA, Asia Tokyo Programming. Shesha Prasad AR, Core Committee Member, ASIFA India, Head of Production, DMake India. DMake is one of the world's leading visual effects and animation studios for feature film and television. Honored with the Academy Award 7 times, Prasad has 92 film credits on IMDb. Sanjay Khimesara, President of ASIFA India. He is the president of Central India's leading design school, Horizon Institute of Design, and business partner, Arena Animation Geeta Bhavan Indore, which is Center for Excellence in the field of AVGC and digital media since 25 years, with 7 Oscar, 4 National Award credits to alumni, and 200 plus other laurels. Siva Kumar Kaseti, Core Committee Member, Producer, The Monk Studios Bangkok, Thailand. The Monk Studios focus on producing world-class imagery for VFX and animations for feature films and commercials. Mentor, Consultant, Destiny Logic, and KBD Academy. Co-chair, SIGRA Asia 2021 Tokyo. Global Head of Outreach View Conference. Chair, Bangalore, ACM, CGRA Chapter. R.K. Paulina, Core Committee Member, Founder, and MD, IACG Multimedia Private Limited, India's first academy to order full-time graduation and post-graduation in multimedia, celebrating 20th year. He supports Indian animation industry and organized Indian pavilions in Netcom, NetTV, ATF, Kids Screen, and GDC. Has been a core committee member in bringing SIGRA to Asia in 2008. He has been part of Animation Express for 7 years in supporting and promoting Indian animation industry. Vinod Ramakrishnan, Director, Finance at ASIFA India and Core Committee Member. He is in charge payroll and accounts at Dow Films India and Circus Arts Private Limited Studios, creating high-end VFX for global projects. Bill Dennis, President, Emirates ASIFA India, by staying true to the spirit and upholding one of its mottos of blending art and technology, making available invaluable knowledge and information. ASIFA India, throughout the year, arranges several free workshops, namely the CG Meetup, regularly conducted since January 2006. One of the main aspects of these meetups is creating a free, open to all platform for interaction and networking, which has seen the active participation and support of the industry. The other event that has been pivotal in getting together the community across the country has been the Animation Film Festival International Animation Day, IAD, which is an annual global celebration to recognize the art of animation, celebrated every year on the 28th of October. ASIFA India regularly calls for entries from students and professionals to organize awards of excellence with IAD each year. During COVID over, 20 ECG meetups were organized with top artists from across the globe, and a special initiative to empower women creators was introduced in 2021 with Unreal named as Women Creators Program. Already 2 versions and 40 plus graduates have been provided with fellowship under WCP. ASIFA India plans to have total 13 sub-chapters across India: Bangalore, Bilaspur CG, Chandigarh, Gurgaon, Hyderabad, Indore, Kolkata, Mumbai, Nashik, New Bombay, Noida, Pune, Chennai. Stay in touch with us. Website www.asifaindia.com. Facebook ASIFA India 2000. Instagram at ASIFA India 2000. Twitter at ASIFA India 2000. LinkedIn ASIFA India.
Thank
So you can stop sharing the screen.
Yeah, I'll do that.
You're on mute, sir. Sorry, you're on mute.
Let me introduce Siva Kumar Kassetti. He will introduce our today's expert, Mr. BN Vichar. Siva, please.
Thank you very much, Sanjay ji. Good evening and welcome everyone. Yes, we are meeting for the first time in 2023. Wish you a very happy and prosperous new year for the, 2023. And this is our first session for the year. And we are super excited about this year, as we are planning to come up with a lot of amazing speakers, and we're going to have great talks and workshops. Without any further delay, I would like to introduce Mr. BN Vichar. I'm a big fan of Vichar, and I'm also a good friend of Vichar. So with this, without any further delay, I would like to ask Vichar to introduce himself and dive into his awesome presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot your questions using the Q&A option in the Zoom UI. We will get to the Q&A at the end of the presentation. Yeah, over to Vichar. Please welcome Vichar, everyone.
Thank you, Shiva, for introduction, and I would like to take this opportunity to thank ASIFA India for giving me opportunity to share my journey and talk about the storytelling with spiral composition. First of all, Happy New Year, everyone, and I am also really excited to share my experience with you all. Please feel free to if you have any questions, please feel free to drop in your questions. I will be answering in the last. So let me give a little introduction about myself. My name is BN Vichar. Currently, I'm working in Technicolor Games as art director. I've been in digital industry from past 18 years. So before that, let me give you a little bit about my, from the childhood, how I got into art. So it's a really, fun. I got a fantastic experience from art, and I had a wonderful journey in my career. So I was born and brought up in Mysore. I was very much inspired from the heritage city and the culture, beautiful art across the air. So I was, when I started in the early years, I was very much inspired from the palace art and the architecture. So I used to think, how do I mimic that? How do I, I wanted to become an artist. I was very clear in the very early age itself, I want to be an artist. I want to create an artwork, what inspired me as a childhood. So I got to see a great artist like Ravi Verma painting. So I had opportunity to see the original painting. So I was really thrilled about it. So taking my career further, I went into Kava, Chamarajendra Academy of Visual Art, where I did my bachelor as well as masters in sculpting. So over that period, I was exploring a lot of Indian architecture and Indian temple art that really inspired me to tell story in a different way in my sculpture using art. So I was very much inspired to learn the history through art. So that really triggered me that how I can, mix art and storytelling together. So this was my journey. So this is very important. So that's the reason I'm bringing here. So how I started using storytelling in my sculpture. So I was very much inspired from Hoysala art. I would say this is the Indian Rococo art. I'm sure you all have seen Hoysala temples, Belur Halebeed. And according to me, these are the first, sculptures for me, which inspired me to animation, storytelling. So if you see this, all these panels is all like an animation. If you go around about it, it is like a flip book. So those days itself, they had animation. According to me, animation is not new. It was existing, but only the terms are different actually. So when you go around this temple, this whole Lata Petti case will look like animation, like a flip book. I'm sure everyone would have tried that. It's like flip book. When you draw a certain thing and you do this, the animation happens, right? It is something like that they have tried in the stone. And I like the concept of the story inside a story, like a Drost effect. So I started exploring in those lines in my college days. This is one of the sculpture which I did it in my master degree. It is based on Indian mythology. I'm sure you would have heard Ramayana. So this is called Desire. So if you know the story, that is a crucial point where Sita will ask for a golden deer and the whole story changes, the narration changes. So I wanted to bring that elements, storytelling of Indian technique onto my sculptures. So these are the exploration stage, early exploration stage. If you see a Drost effect, story inside a story. So the main story was Ramayana. And from inside that, what happened, after she asked the golden deer, how the story changes. So I depicted the whole Ramayana on top of this deer body. It's a Maricha, changing from the deer, golden deer into Maricha. It's a transformation stage, in between stage. I wanted to capture that frozen movement as well as tell the whole story around it. So this was where I started pursuing more into storytelling and how do we use in artwork. So I believe that, well said story, remembers a lot, we remember a lot. Well said, in the artwork, we always, remember those sculptures a lot, or, the stories which someone had told you in a very nice way. We remember it, right? So it's something like that, which really, triggered me to explore more on those lines. So this is once again, based on Mahabharat. So if you see, the whole Mahabharat is depicted on her. She is Draupadi. And according to me, we say we are in 21st century, but still we haven't changed. We do gambling. We do, we give keep female for other this thing. So that is still not changed. We are still at the same era. So I wanted to depict that as a, as a sculpture and capture the whole Mahabharat inside her. When we talk about Mahabharat, we always talk about Draupadi, and inside that we talk more about what happened in Mahabharat. So it is something like the Drost effect, picture inside a picture, story inside a story. So that was very fascinating for me, because the way our ancestors have done in the temple architecture, it was really inspiring for me. And that's where I started exploring, adopting those style in my sculpture in a contemporary way. And once again, this is one more sculpt of mine called Enlighten One. And in this, I have done 4 stages of Buddha. And I won't go too much in depth, but I'll give you a little brief so that you understand a little bit about it. So I have divided 4 different stages. If you see the neck, it's more of his royal when he was a Siddhartha, because we use gold in the neck, right? So I have depicted the whole, Siddhartha life. And when Buddha used to preach, the animals used to sit and listen. If you see closer by near the lips, there are a lot of deer sitting, listening to his conversation and everything. So when we speak to someone, it should be very pleasing, not to hurt anyone. So there are a lot of lessons to take from that, but I wanted to use literature as well as the same symbolism in storytelling. So that's where it's a unique way of doing things, and this is called Dokra casting. It's not been casted; it's still in the wax. So I wanted to explore the technicality as well as use a different way of storytelling. So in my college days, I used to spend a lot of time doing exploring on storytelling, and I used to always do a lot of sketches, life study drawings. So that really helped me to take my storytelling to a different level. So when I was doing that, after completing my masters, I got an opportunity to work with the late Shrikant Datta Vadayar, the king of Mysore. This was my first place, job place, where I started my job as an artist. So I got an opportunity to sculpt a lot of sculptures, restore a couple of sculptures in the palace. So that's where I was really thrilled to see a lot of great artist work, and I had an opportunity to feel it, touch it, and get inspired from it. That's really motivated me to take my skill to the next level, where I was able to create a lifelike sculpture, but I wanted to take it to the next level. I was able to mimic realism, but I didn't know how to take it to the next level. So this is the one sculpture which I did for the Highness. So you could see this is a plaster of Paris work. And this was very challenging for me, because to create something very realistic, as well as understanding the material and overcoming that, it was a nice experience. It's still there in their personal collection. So from here, I was like, yes, I could do something very realistic, but how do I take my storytelling to next level? So that's where I got to know about digital art and digital sculpting. where it was really fascinating for me. Like, being an artist, there is a saying in Sanskrit called Aham Brahmasmi. I usually use this, where you play like a dummy god, where you can create your character and give life to your character. That was really fascinating for me. And that's where I wanted to take my storytelling and my, sculpting ability to the next level. So this is one of my sculpt called Frozen Movement, the Hunting Dragon. So when I was exploring, I knew the traditional skills, but digital was something new for me. And I didn't know what is computer, what is mouse. So over a period, I spent a lot of time to understand the tool, but I didn't spend much time to master it, because my traditional, skill really helped me out to take my understanding of 3D dimension in computer, and take the storytelling to the next level. So I was inspired from I'm sure you all would have watched YouTube, and when, or any TV series, or recent past you would have watched Netflix, or when you are watching, suddenly you get an ad, and you will be very curious what will happen next. At moment they'll put an ad. So I wanted to capture that kind of moment in my sculpture. So, I wanted to keep the spectator to think about it. So that's where I had created this, and, kept, open for the spectator to, are the art lovers to, differ this, and, think about it, like whether the dragon will eat the deer, or deer will escape. So wanted to keep that kind of curiosity in the sculpture. And I will be talking in the further slides about what is spiral composition, how I use spiral composition, and how useful is spiral composition. So before getting in depth, let me talk about contraposta. I'm sure you would have heard about it, or when I was doing digital sculpting, when I learned a lot from the great masters. So I used to study a lot of great masters. I have before going in depth, I have a folder of great masters work, where I always keep referring them, and try to understand more. Every time when I look at it, I get something new to learn from that. So contraposta is nothing but, if you see the screen left, it's a Greek sculpture. It's a beautiful sculpture, but when you see the screen right, you see a lot of life into it. So contraposta is nothing but giving action to your sculpture, about to move, about to take an action, about to communicate something. So that was really nice. A subtle gesture could change the whole storytelling, or the look of the whole character. So that's where I started exploring more on contraposta, and explored a lot of, this is also a sculpture, but it's nice. I did a lot of anatomy study for this, but there's something missing, which is not nice. It's, as a sculpture, it is good, but there's no life in it. There's no, movement into it. So that's where I was exploring a lot of, ways of doing things. And this is also a few example for contraposto, where little movement is there, little exploration. And I would like to give a little bit insight about these two images. I was very much inspired from I'm the calendars. If you would have seen in 80s and 90s, in the old houses, they used to put a lot of Wewel calendars, Wewel ladies on the calendars. So that was inspiring for me. So, and I had seen one of the marble sculpture in Salarjung Museum, where they have done a Wewel kind of wet feel in the marble. So I wanted to mimic that in my own way. So the first rain, and the how she's exploring the rain and the smell of it. So just wanted to capture those story inside that sculpture in one frame. So this is the experiment which I did using digital sculpting. And the second image in the right side is inspired from Haldalkar, lady with the lamp. I'm sure you would have seen that. If you have not seen, please Google it out. It's a beautiful painting. So I was inspired from that, and I wanted to get that vivid thing, and as well as that curiosity. If you see closer by, there is a transparency in the cloth, and a small movement of light passing through it. So I wanted to mimic that from the master, what Haldarkar had done that. So I wanted to capture that. So this was the exploration which I did in ZBrush. And further studying, I realized that there can be done a little more for, I can improve my sculpt even more further. And this image is taken from internet. It's not created by me. I don't know the author. So I was, using this technique, and it was really helpful for me. And if you see here, there are subtle twist has been given, the torso, the hip rotation, and it makes it more dynamic. The gesture and the body language was nicely depicted in the sculpture. We all have seen Michelangelo David. It's really, he's a master of anatomy, and the way he sculpts is beautiful. It's always inspired me from my childhood. So I always, take some references from his sculpts. So when I saw this in online, I thought this is the right image which depicts everything. So if you see, there is a little body shift, the hip rotation and the knee rotation. That was really, made it more lively actually. So I started, implementing those elements in my sculpture. If you see, the torso is twisted, the upper torso is looking in different direction, and head is tilted in different direction. So I started playing around, giving a little movement in the sculpture. That really helped me to play with the light. And as a sculptor, as a artist, the light plays a very important role, how it falls on the surface. So started exploring more on those things. So for me, this is a UFC player called Asto Overin. So I was, wanted to sculpt anatomy and understand anatomy furthermore in digital. Since I had done a lot of life study in college days with live model, and wanted to master that in same technique in digital. So I spent a lot of time understanding anatomy, and there were a lot of, current digital, masters who really helped me out to understand. I'm not taking each and individual name, but there are a lot of artists who really helped me to push in this digital industry to achieve what I have achieved today. So I, be open for learning, and if anyone gives you feedback, feel free to take it and improvise on it. That really helped me to take my digital sculpting to the next level. And if you see here, slowly you could see a lot of movement happening in the body. You see a little twist in the torso, upper torso twisted, hands twisted. So it's creating that kind of movement in the sculpture. So slowly started exploring, and I wanted to get the tactileness, like like a plaster. So it's very tough to get those feels in the digital. So wanted to explore those kind of elements in my sculpture, like tactileness, like clay or plaster. So I wanted to mimic that. So sometime, like what I've learned in my traditional education is, uh, every material is important to tell a story. So material also, we always think, when we think about an subject, what material will help this subject to take it to the next level. And if you see here also, I started twisting around. You could see that hip rotated, upper torso rotated, and wanted to capture 5 elements, panchabhuta, what they say: water, air, wind, and all the 5 elements which I wanted to capture in my sculpture. It's always complicated and always challenging to get that. And if you see this, the whole water is been hand sculpted without any VFX. So I sculpted each and every water droplet. You could see this tutorial in my ArtStation page. And same thing, I wanted to mimic the Drost effect, what I did in my college days. So this is a Helen of Troy. When we talk about Troy or Helen of Troy, we remember the war, Trojan War, and how Hercules died and everything. So for me, this was the first installation art started. If you remember the story, they built a wooden horse and kept near the entrance of the gate. So for me, that really fascinated me, that installation art was started way long back. It's not something new. So that's what I wanted to capture in the whole story. And the same like what I did for Draupadi, it is something similar to that, where I have depicted the whole narrative story across her body. So let's this is the exploration stage, which I was trying different way of composing the body, composing the thing to tell a story, like a Drost effect, using Drost effect. So over that the process, I got to learn more about a spiral composition. What is spiral composition? Nothing but it's like a spring which makes the spectator to revolve around the sculpture, and it keeps the curiosity. What happens is your eye goes around the sculpture and hooks back to the same where you started. That is called spiral composition. That is what the great masters had accomplished in their sculptures. So I wanted to bring that element in my sculpture. It's very important. If you see, I'll be showing furthermore example on the spiral composition. If you see, when you see, imagine there is a sculpture in the center, and when you go around, it keeps you the interest of what is the other side of the sculpture. Rather than T-pose doesn't give you that life. So when it is in spiral composition, you'll make the spectator to go around the sculpture, and still it keeps the curiosity. And well said story with using this kind of composition will really stands out. That's what we have learned from the great masters. So nothing new I'm invented. It is something already it is there, but very few of them use this kind of technique. There are a lot of current digital masters, they use this technique, but I also I explored more on this line. And this is one more image of Michelangelo sculpture. If you see here, spiral composition, what you saw previously was only a few twists and turns, right? If you see here, upper torso is twisted, lower torso is twisted, and the ankles are in different line, the patella or the knee is in different tangent. So it keeps you curiosity more. Actually, if you see the screen left image, you feel that what is the other side. It keeps you curiosity as a spectator, as an art lover. I want to see what is the other side, what is happening. It keeps you that interest. So that is very key thing. And one more thing, these are the few example. If you see that, it keeps you curiosity. I want to see the other side, what is happening, what is that, where he is landed, what is that body movement is. So every angle gives you a different experience. That is the power of spiral composition. So that really fascinated me, and I started using this technique in my sculpting, and using storytelling. So that made me feel, because I got an opportunity to see a couple of great master sculptures live, and that really fascinated me to adopt this style of storytelling. So if you see, every three images looks three different sculpture, even though it is the same sculpture. And if you see the Hercules, the way, the body language, body anatomy, and I'm a big fan of anatomy, and uh, it's really keeps the tension. It's like a spring, winded spring. So it keeps the tension, it keeps the spectator to go around, keeps the whole heat together. So that was really moved me to adopt this style in my digital sculpting. And this is a sculpt from Bernini, David. If you see, this is like, if you see the bottom is twisted somewhere, it's like a spring. twisted. So that keeps you very, curiosity. What is the other side of it? And when you go on the other side of it, your eye will go around the sculpture. You cannot take your eye out of the sculpture. It always revolve around the sculpture itself. That is what the great masters, have achieved previously. So, I always think when I do a digital sculpt, I always think that it will be converted into real sculpture. So how it should be. So always keep this in mind when I sculpt and I create my sculptures. And this is given a Bolgona sculpture called Rape of a Southern Woman. If you see, it is getting too complex here. It is 3 or 4 twists is there in the whole sculpture. So it's spiraling out. It's more of like a spiral. So the like a winded spring kind of a feel is there. The whole tension is being captured. The storytelling into the next level. So that really inspired me to take those spiraling and making it more complex in storytelling. And one more thing which I really loved is I would be asking the audience, like, you all take selfie. I usually ask this in every session. Why do you take selfie like a straight view? You always take in a 3/4 view. You never take a selfie in a straight view. You know why? I'll leave it on the spectator to think about it. Let me tell you that. Because what happens is when you take in a 3/4, the play of light and it'll unveils the form and it gives you the tonal values. Like, if you're seeing this example, the spiraling or the 3/4 twist, which gives you the illusion of 3 dimension. So that's why we always take selfie in 3/4. That's why no one will put like a passport photograph. Always it will be in 3/4. Imagine why you take that, so you'll understand better. So that's what I understood from their this thing. And if you see many of the paintings, we always see a 3/4 portrait rather than a straight view portrait because of this element. So that really helped me to crack my digital sculpting and how to compose, how to get a right form, right gesture when you're telling a story. Observation is very important. And and how do you compose, how do you build up in the spiral composition. So further I'll be showing a couple of my example and little explain about spiral composition. And this is done for 3D Total Anatomy book. So I got an opportunity to promote that book. So that time I had created this for anatomy. So if you see here, I started playing around with 2 twists. Like if you see, hip is twisted and upper torso is twisted. So I started playing with the surface and excuse me. And the play of light will unveil the forms nicely. So started using this twist and turns, the spiraling method in my sculpt. And that really pushed my skill to the next level, where you don't get references this way. So you have to understand the anatomy. To understand the anatomy, you have to study a lot. So that really pushed to improve my skills, because it's easy to do a T pose rather than doing in pose. It's all sculpted in pose, not in the T pose. And this is also once again 2 spiral composition. If you see, the crocodile is twisted in other direction and the female is in other direction. There is a 2 twist, 2 spiral composition, and this is one of my favorite sculpt. So I wanted to say Beauty and the Beast. I'm sure everyone know Beauty and the Beast story. So I wanted to change the stereoscopic view of the people. If you ask me, if I ask you guys, like which is the beauty and which is the beast, everyone say the girl is the beauty and the crocodile is the beast. But I wanted to change that. Like, according to me, the beauty is the crocodile and beast is us. We butcher them and we use their skin. So I wanted to say symbolically the whole story into a different way. So in this, I wanted to explore storytelling and give that art as illusion feel. When I was studying in art colleges, we had a subject called aesthetics. In that, we talk about more of art as illusion. So I wanted to create illusion, there is a water but there's no water, but you should feel that weight and everything. So this was an small exploration what I did using the latest technology. And this once again, multiple twist. You could see the hip rotated in different direction, the knee rotated in a different direction. This is called balance of life. So I wanted to use life is something like a unicycle. So you cannot ride it however you want. It takes a lot of experience to ride it, and life is something like that. So it's all about balancing act what we do in our life. So wanted to use that storytelling in a symbolically. Same time, I wanted to explore more on the anatomy side. So this is one of the sculpt I did using ZBrush. You could see the tension. It's more like a spiral. If you see every angle, it shows in different, view. Every muscle is tensed up, and a lot of study I went through while doing this. So anatomy is very important when you are doing something like this. You have to be very sure about how the muscle how the muscle deposits, how the fat deposits. So you need to study a lot to understand that. So that really helped me to improve my skills because every body type is different. So if you think that I learned something, but when you create something different body types, the anatomy is entirely different. So every time it's a new learning for me, and I always spend a lot of time learning anatomy. And whatever right now we are seeing my sculptures, it's all done in my free time. So I believe in a concept called art for stomach sick, art for soul sick. This is after my 12 or 13 hours of office. I sit every day and look at great master work and spend a lot of time sculpting. And once again, this is I wanted to capture a soul and wanted to capture the whole story. I was inspired from movie posters. Like when we see a poster, we always think, oh, the movie it's horror, or movie I think this is the scene. So we always start developing the story behind the poster, right? So I wanted to depict that, and same time I wanted to as I was telling Panchabhuta, I wanted to capture a soul. I wanted to sculpt a soul. As a traditional artist, it's very tough to do a soul. So I manually sculpted this soul in ZBrush, and same time I wanted to capture that emotion. The lover has lost her loved one, and her soul is traveling to a different world. So wanted to capture everything in one frame. So this is once again multiple spiral composition. So if you see, the whole female is twisted in other direction, the person is twisted in looking in a different direction. So try to build the tense composition what I was shown given a Bolgona sculpture, where multiple spiral composition. So I started using that and started playing with that. So this is one exploration which I did using spiral composition. So why I'm keep stressing on spiral composition, because what happens is, as a spectator, imagine this is created as a real element. It keeps the spectator revolving his eyes. He cannot take away his eyes out. It will once again throws back to the sculpture. So we need to hook the spectator to look for longer period, and he should enjoy, he should connect with your artwork, and he should connect with your story. So that really helps you. That's what the great masters did. And I started using that technique in my digital sculpting. And when I was doing that, I was very much inspired from Greek sculptures, and like Bernini, David. So I wanted to create a sculpture based on karma. You know what is karma, right? What goes around comes around. So that was really fascinating. I wanted to bring that provoke into a sculpture. So how do I do it? So I thought about it, and like a boomerang, right? When you throw a boomerang, it comes back to you. So in real life, we need to do a good karma, it'll come back to us. As an artist, we need to be good to others so that they respect us. So that is the message which I wanted to give through my sculpture. And every sculpture of mine, I always try to give some message to the people, so that it's not just a piece of artwork, but there should be a message in that. So I learned this thing also from the great masters. They you would have heard Panchatantra. Every story has some moral in it. So there should be some moral in your sculpture, where you could educate others also. So this is, once again, if you see this, the upper torso is twisted, the hip is twisted, and the leg is twisted. Once again, it's a three twist what I have done, spiraling. So when you see the play of light, unveils the form very nicely. You could see the tension in the muscle, as well as it keeps you curiosity. As I showed you that example of spiraling thing, that's how I imagined it, and created this, and wanted to capture that the flow, the movement, the wind, everything in this sculpt. This is another view of it. And over a period, I got an opportunity, while exploring, I got an opportunity to be a beta tester for ZBrush. And I wanted to create balance. They merged with they bought Sculptress in ZBrush. So it's a balance of ZBrush and Sculptress. So I wanted to do like a ballet. I was very much inspired from Degas sculptures, ballet dancers, and wanted to create my own version of it. So balancing act on the spear. And same time, I was inspired from McDonald sculpture also. So this is called silent music. I was inspired from the classic sculpture. And this is also a multiple twist, and same time it's a silent music, where wanted to capture that that moment when there's a pin drop silent, and she's going to start that violin, and you could hear the music. So I wanted to capture that frozen moment. So this is one exploration. I wanted to capture the sound before the sound, silent, this thing. And I had to study a lot about the gesture and the pose, how they do a violin. And I was inspired from one of the sculpture. I've forgotten the name of the artist, sorry. So I did my own version of it. Why I'm keeping referring all this thing is, so as an artist, when we take inspiration from others, it's our duty to tell others that where the inspiration has come from, and how much you have taken that into a different level. And this is also one more exploration which I did for spiral composition. And you could see that the hunting dog. So this is also I did for ZBrush Beta. And so I just wanted to capture that the movement, the where the dog is trying to hunt the rabbit. So wanted to capture the speed, as well as, like, speed goes like this, right? When we say speed, we do like this, our hand gesture goes like that. So wanted to get that a curve, or the action. So very important when we draw action or force. So we do that, right? Drawings. So I took that, literally drawing the curve, and started using that into 3D sculpting. So that's what you need to spend a lot of time mastering the traditional art. Then it'll be very easy to take your digital sculpting to the next level. And once again, this is Smoking Beauty. And I was inspired from. How many of you seen, Harappa Mohenjo-daro dancing girl statue, small 7-inch statue? Because it was very inspiring for me when in art history they used to say after the dance, the art historian says that after the dance she's standing taking a rest. So I was inspired from that. So I wanted to do my own version of it. This is a pole dancer. After her performance, she's lost in her own thoughts and having that me time with her. So every lace has been hand sculpted using ZBrush. So I wanted to show that the netted feel and everything. Same time, like always, I challenge myself. How do I mimic it manually? Since I come from traditional background, always I love to do manually rather than taking some shortcuts. That way, it will help me to improve my skills. And when I was exploring all this, I got an opportunity to explore more, where I can give life to my sculpture and where I can feel it. Till now, I'm, viewing in ZBrush art as illusion kind of a thing. It's 3D, but it's not 3D. But I was exposed to, 3D printing. And this is a 3D print. It's just 75 centimeters big, probably 4-inch or 5-inch. So then I was able to take my storytelling and make it live in the this thing. That really helped me to understand the spiral composition to the next level. How do we push it even more further so that in real life it looks better? And while storytelling, why I'm doing that, I was exploring my own way, and I was inspired from Norman Rockwell. So one of the best illustrator in the world. So I he did a lot of child series. When I was looking at it, I wanted to do my own version of inspiration from Norman Rockwell. So I'm sure you guys would have taken your nephews or your son, excuse me, to a salon, and I wanted to capture that experience, the storytelling, and capture that frozen moment, how painful it will be the first haircut. So this is one exploration of that. And this is also, once again, it's a spiral. If you see from the top, it's all twisted around. So I use a lot of those elements in my storytelling. And this is a WIP sculpt. This is called Ego. And one of my closest artwork this one is. And I always why we fly kite. We always say my kite should go higher. No, that is how we always play the kite game, right? So I've compared that the kite to ego. So you should fly low. You should you should be ego free. And wanted to capture that ego. It's always tough to capture a ego, right, as a sculpture, as an artwork. So I wanted to capture that in a symbolically. So and the very early age, as a parent, all will say that you are better than other person, you are better than other artist. So that will lead that development of ego. That is not good. So as an artist, we should be ground to earth, and we should help each other to grow further, rather than thinking that I am better, I am big. That ego shouldn't be there in our art fraternity. So I wanted to depict that in the sculpture. And the same thing, I got an opportunity to, Pablo wanted me to do a sculpt for him using his clay brushes. So this is one of the sculpt, and I wanted to capture that. I'm sure everyone would have played, paper rocket and everything. That innocency, that joy, the the feeling the air. So I wanted to capture that experience here. This is also, once again, if you see, it's once again, it's a spiral composition. So see, if you would have done it straight, I think it wouldn't have looked so much interesting. Having that spiral composition in your sculpting, or in your it could be your concept art, it could be in animation. You can apply this principle in all the format. So that will really help you to take your storytelling to the next level. And this is once again abstract sculpt, kabaddi, abstract, obstacles to success. So, kabaddi, we always play that, that white line, you have to, cross that line. You have to, in the real life, we always, someone will stop you to achieve your goal. Obstacles in kabaddi, what happens is, you have to stop for some person to reach that line. But we should be other way around. When it comes to real life, we should support, as an artist, we should support each other to grow further. We need to build that supporting community in our art industry. So that was the message which I wanted to give here in this sculpture. So don't be an obstacle for someone else's growth. Appreciate art, appreciate artists to grow further rather than pulling down. So wanted to tell the story in a symbolic way. And so true, right? So many people pull you down to, to reach your goal. So it shouldn't be that way. You should be helping each other to grow further. And when I was exploring all this, I started to capture, I was inspired from Mona Lisa painting. So I wanted to capture that inner thought. It's always tough to capture those things in storytelling, because the facial expression, facial feel, capturing that inner thought is very important. So this is where, she's lost her loved one, and she's lost in her own thought of remembrance of his movement with him. So wanted to capture that, the inner thought. So I started exploring with body movement, with facial expression. So this all will help to build a better a sculpture or a artwork while storytelling. And I don't know how many of you have been to Mysore Palace. So I was inspired from one of the British sculpture. It is there in the Mysore Palace. So I wanted to, symbolically use that in my sculpture and tell a story. It's a crossover. The subject is called crossover. Every big person or animal gets scared to cross over the water, or cross over certain hurdles. So we need to get away from our fear of crossovering it, or exploring something new. So that message I wanted to depict here. And same time, I wanted to study animal anatomy, as well as take the storytelling to the next level. So this is, once again, it's a spiral composition. You could see that the twist, if you see, the back is twisted somewhere in a different angle. The front torso is twisted in a different angle. When you see like yin yang kind of a thing, it's more like an S shape in the top view. So I've played with all compositions. I'm sure 15 compositions are there: L, S, O, pyramidical, and spiral, golden ratio. So I always use all these elements in my sculpture. I haven't gone too depth into all those subject. I'm just just tapped on the very surface on the spiral composition, so that everyone gets an idea about how the spiral composition has been done, how important in artwork having this would really push the artwork to the next level. So if you have any questions, I think feel free to ask. Shiva, I think we can open up for
Sure, Richard. Yeah. So we have a few questions which some of our audience have asked. So in case if other people have any questions, please feel free to type in the Q&A section. We can take few questions before we end the session. So before we get into the questions, Richard, that was like fabulous session. Thank you so much. It was wonderful. We have got a lot of insights from you today.
Thank you, Shiva. As I said, it's just on the surface, so that just to soak in what is spiral composition, so that if you get more time, I think it'll be great. You guys go through that. It'll really help you to master your storytelling.
Sure, Vichar. So first question is from Swarna. Swapnalata, what are the challenges you experienced when you are sculpting the realistic dog? Maybe Vichar, you can stop sharing the screen and you can be on full screen.
1 second.
Yeah. I'll repeat
Okay.
the question. What are the
Okay.
challenges you experienced when you are sculpting the realistic dog?
When It's a nice question actually. So it's about getting the right reference. When I started, there was no much internet those days, and I went literally with my sketchbook and studied the street dogs, how it sits, how the body movement goes. It's a greyhound, and usually you don't get that greyhound as a reference. So that's where, to understand the anatomy, I spent a lot of time. Those days we didn't had much references like what you get today in internet. So that was a challenge for me to get the right references.
Sure, Vichar. Another question. Um, are spiral composition and golden ratio same?
The spiral composition golden ratio is slight different. This is spiraling out. The golden ratio is entirely, it's a different concept. The spiraling is more in sculpture. What I showed is it's kind different actually.
Okay, sure, Vichar. Thank you. So next question is from Gaurav Das. How do we approach anatomy study for artists? I think it's more for beginners.
Okay, so I think the first thing is develop your eye for aesthetic. You need to observe a lot. What happened for me while I was studying in art college, we used to every day go to a bus stand or a railway station and do sketches, understand the body language, gesture. So that really helped me to understand the anatomy. Like, okay, if he's a fat person, how he sits, or if I'm scared, how a person will sit. You need to observe a lot. Usually I say that develop your mind drive. Like you have Google Drive, right? Like that, we need to develop our mind drive. So how much you observe and store in your mind drive, that really helps you when you are doing sculpting or any art form.
Okay, great. Thank you, Vichar. So another question from Gaurav Das. How do you approach the cloth draperies in your silent lady sculpture and the female sculpture inspired by Mona Lisa?
So what I did is as I said, it was inspired from one of the great master sculptures. Like I always, do a quick sketch or quick sculpt first as a maquette. Usually we do it in traditional art as a maquette before blowing up into a bigger size. So I tried out different, pose and different way of approaching the cloth, and what I did was referred a lot of references from the online, because I'm big I would say you should have a lot of references to understand. There are a lot of artists, great artists, who don't need reference. They sculpt it or they do artwork without any reference. But as I consider still learning, I'm a student. So for me, I need more references to understand how the cloth behaves to a certain body type, and you need to understand the anatomy of the cloth. The cloth also has an anatomy. It's a bigger subject, but I would put it in a small X, Y, C's and Z. So those kind of anatomy for cloth you need to study. That will really help you out while sculpting. Like how uh, when there is an internal object and the cloth falls on something, how the drapery works, when it takes the shape, how it behaves. So you need to know that anatomy. How you learn human anatomy, like that you need to learn the cloth anatomy. Every cloth wrinkle will be entirely different based on the material. So you need to understand, if it's a silk, whether if it is a silk, how do you get wrinkle? If it is a cotton, how the wrinkle folds will be, and how you get X and Y's. So all this you need to study. So for that you need to observe more, study more about cloth thing. So that's what I had done previously. Getting into this sculpt, I studied a lot. doing that cloth.
Thank you, Vichar. So next question is from Rava. How to create spiral compositions in 2D illustrations?
Yes, it's a nice thing because if you see any great artist or any illustration, usually they don't, do a composition very straight. Best example is the comic strips or Marvel. This thing, if you see the Marvel cover page, nothing will be in straightforward. It's all tension. It's all spiraling out. A lot of motion will be there. That's what keeps you, jaw dropping. Wow, what a poster it is! What a composition it is. So it's how you compose it. See the like how do you use the composition in a right way in 2D. So yes, it's possible. It will be really nice. There are a lot of 2D artists use spiral composition. As I said, if you see a lot of Marvel comics and everything, there are a lot of those kind of illustration being done. I hope I understood answered your question.
I hope so. Maybe we can have Rava to comment later if he has any counter question. Cool. Next question is by Aryan Arora. Please tell me technique and art brain about general knowledge about sculpting for students.
Uh, Okay, so first thing is as a student, you need to be open for learning. It's like when you if you want to become a better sculptor, you need to take a lot of chiseling. Like that, as a student, be open for learning and keep practicing, because the the three thing here will keep you to become a better sculptor or a better artist. Practice, practice and practice. It's all about practicing it. So if you do like example, I'm showing my hand. So do multiple times, you learn multiple ways of doing things. So like that, build your the Google Drive or like Mind Drive. When you're sculpting it, your hand goes in like that. When I say there is a Sanskrit word called Karatala Malaka. So you need to master the art. You need to master the surface. Like when I close my hands, close my eyes, and if I want to do a hands, I know how the surface goes. My hand goes according to that sculpt, because I've been practicing it again and again. So that will really help you to as a student, will help you to take further and never get disheartened if you don't get certain result, because I also won't get in a first shot. So don't carry away with the iceberg what I'm showing now. Before that, I have spent a lot of failures that led me to here. So always learn from your previous mistake and do a better sculpt. If I have done today what I've done a sculpt, I feel mistakes in that, and I'll start improvising tomorrow, or when I see for the fresh eyes. So keep like that, improvising it, practice more, spend a lot of time polishing it. So then you'll become perfect in that. That's how approach it should be. As a student, it should be more open to learning, and don't carry away if someone says that, hey, this is a nice sculpt or nice artwork. Don't stop from there. Keep pushing it, because okay, fine. So be always flowing water rather than a stagnant water. Keep pushing yourself. Keep small goals. Let me achieve this. Let me achieve how to sculpt an hand, how to sculpt a nose, how to sculpt a ear. There are a lot of different ears, different age phases. So that will really help you to understand the fat anatomy, and that will really take you to the right path as a student. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So I would request Sanjay sir to take a couple of questions, then we can wrap up the session. Sanjay sir, please take over.
Yeah, amazing session, Vichar.
Thank you,
I
sir.
think students and participants are getting a lot of clarity on what they want to do. Next question is from Swarna Lata. How many days it took to sculpt Mahabharata on Draupadi?
That I have spent 2 months. It's a traditional sculpture. So I have spent 2 months to create that. And it was selected for national award also when I was in college. So yeah, and it's a tedious process, because that's the reason I wanted to, come to digital sculpture, the clay which never dries. So that is the advantage, because when I'm doing in traditional, you have to safeguard a lot the clay moisture and everything. So yeah, I had to finish it way faster. So to your question, I spent 2 months to do that.
Thank
2 to 3 months,
you.
roughly, because it's been long time. Probably I may be wrong, but yeah, somewhere in those time frame I have completed it.
Another question from R.D. Rava. Uh, Please give us guidance on how to become environment artist. Uh, she has asked two parts. One is, do environment artists need to know about anatomy of people? And second part, she's asking how to use spiral techniques in environment printing.
Okay. Yeah, it's a nice question for artist also. It's always, it's like, I will give a small example. It should be like a thali. You would have tried thali, right? You have different portion of it. And as an artist, you should explore everything. You shouldn't be like, okay, only I'll eat this. So you should try out everything. And then I know you are interested in environment, then you need to go in depth into that. So I would suggest that, as an artist, we shouldn't restrict ourselves for certain style or certain genres. We should be open for everything. As an artist, if you ask me, I can do a very stylized character also, very toony character also. In my career, I have done from hyper realistic to very toony character, creation, environment creation, prop creation. So you need to be open for everything. So never restrict yourself for only one genre. So as an environment artist, it's always good to understand, human anatomy, because when you are creating, a certain environment, you'll understand the scale, you'll understand the proportion and ratio next to the character. It's always good. Having extra knowledge is always good. It's like when you're going for long drive, having extra, petrol is always good, right? So it is something like that. So having extra knowledge is always a plus for an artist. So please, if you get an opportunity to learn about human anatomy, please do that. It will be very handy in your future. And you would have seen my only character creation, but when I started, I didn't get any character. I started as a prop modeler. I, grow in the ladder doing environment. Then I did, character at the later stage. So as an artist, you should be open for everything. And so how do I use spiral composition in environment? If you see any this thing, when you're creating a tree or tree bark, there will be a lot of spiraling elements into that. So it's very important to understand that majority of them fail to get the tactileness, because they would have sculpted a bark waste, right? If you see the tree bark, it's always, there is a spiral in that, there is a twist in that. So many of them won't get it more realistic because of that reason. So there is, you can use spiral composition in an environment also. And right now I don't have any example to share with you, but if you see great masters work in 2D or in 3D, there's a lot of spiral composition being used in that.
Thank you so much, Vichar. I'll take the last question. It is from Soumitra Kundu. Is spiral composition used only for 2D or used in 3D also?
That is the reason it's a nice question. Thank you. That is the reason I showed that, this is the principle you can apply for anything. It could be for sculpting also. It could be for 2D also. It could be for animation also. So it's a concept of it. How do you, tell a story in a spiraling way? So majorly because the play of light, and when you're doing a portrait, you never do a straight portrait. You always see great portraits and all, great masters who have done, it's always 3/4. If you see Mona Lisa also, it's a 3/4, not totally straight. So in 2D also they have used a lot of great artist has used this technique actually. Only thing is, I'm putting it a term called spiral composition and spell thing, so it looks something different, but it's all there in our, previously the great masters have already done. It's nothing new. Only thing is, I'm putting it in this way. That's why it may look something new, but it is not new actually. It's already there.
Great. Such amazing views for the artist. So my next query is, what is your message for the students who are studying in various schools currently, in various art schools or various training academies?
Okay. Thank you,
And
sir. I think that is very important.
yeah, please also share your, if somebody wants to connect to you, can they reach out to you through email?
Yes, I'll share a link of my work and this thing where they can, connect to me. Sir, for your question, I think as a student, as I was talking about, be open for learning. Don't restrict yourself. Like I was telling about Tali, right? In our art school, when I was learning, I went for all the departments. Like I've learned all the division. That really helped me to master my art and skill to the next level. So as an student, don't restrict yourself and keep pushing your eye for aesthetic. That is very important. Don't get caught in technology or the tool is just here to help you out, but you need to develop your ability to think out of box and creative thinking, artistic eye, understanding the volume, shape. So make your traditional skills, that is your backbone. Make your backbone strong, make your art learning strong, and rest tools and all will really support you to take to the next level. And as a student, spend a lot of time creating your portfolio. When you are applying for any company, it could be 2D animation or any genre, your portfolio is very important. So make sure that your basic principles are very strong. Make sure that when it's like they say, right, whether whether the whole rice is cooked or not by one grain, holding one grain, it's something like that. So by seeing your one work, we should be able to judge hey, his the understanding of basic tech basic skills are really good. The proportion is good. When you're creating an environment, the scale ratio, eye for aesthetic is really good. So like that, with one work, you should be able to demonstrate your skills. So spend more time to develop skill. And guys, this is the golden time. Go sketch, learn, observe people, how they sit, how they stand. It is very useful as an concept artist or animator or a modeler or an environment artist, how the surface looks like what is corroded metal, how it will be, or a smooth material, how it looks like. Try to mimic those things with CG. How do I mimic this tactileness? So challenge yourself. As a student, it's a golden opportunity. Now you got all the technology and you got fabulous platform like this. People, really, I would like to thank Asifa for bringing a lot of, great speakers. I have watched a lot of speaker and inspired from them, got to learn a lot of new things. So don't carry away with the iceberg. We come here and tell a lot of things, but we have spent many years. You'll see the only tip of the iceberg, but we have spent a lot of years to reach here. It is not a day or two we have reached here. So we have also spent a lot of hours polishing our skills. So as a student, I've also been in the other side of the as a student, we always get carried away by seeing somebody else work, and we'll try to mimic that, and we won't be able to mimic, and we get disheartened. So don't get carried away with that. You'll also reach, you can be a better artist than me by only practicing it and pushing your skill to the next level. So there is no easy shortcut in art. It's all about practicing and passion. Keep that passion, the fire inside you, to achieve something big that will take you to the different heights.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the words of wisdom. Um, like, do you do any spiritual things to keep yourself cool or anything related to meditation and all?
Not exactly. When I see, it's like when you go to a certain place, you get calm, or you get, taken to a different tangent. When I come to Sculpt, or when I create my own artwork, I go into a different tangent actually. That really takes me, disconnect from the social world or current world, and I would be in my own art world. I will be, in my own art meditation, you could say, in that way, lost in my own, the dream world what I have built in. So that really helps me to, it's kind of a meditation, you could put it in that way. But that really helps me to, disconnect from this and get inside, like an astral travel. I travel in my own world of art.
Any tips for enhancing the patience? Because
So the only thing is, yes, I've also initially used to lose patience. I'm not getting it, I didn't get it, or something like that. Only thing is, always I talk to myself saying that, hey, I can do better, I will do it. So building that inner confidence is very important. Don't get, see, in art there are a lot of people who put you down. I have gone through that, and don't take it to heart. Take it positively. If someone is giving you feedback, it's always good. See it in a positive way, that then you won't need that extra this thing. You don't get disappointed. You'll say, oh, there is a way I could improve it. Okay, so don't take everybody's feedback. If you feel that it is a very genuine, and this thing, that will really help you to keep you motivated rather than getting disheartened. That will help you to motivate yourself.
thank you so much. Like, there is one more query which seems very like connecting to a lot of youngsters. It is related to like as a junior artist. Is it good choice to fill up portfolio with different works, or only one should have separate portfolio for each genre?
No, I think it's always it's like when you go to a cloth shop, or there'll be different cloths, right? So you should show that you are having ability of doing several things, but what you're good at, make sure that you have more of that. But you should demonstrate that you have knowledge of other elements also.
Thank you so much. I think you can just give your email ID so that
So
people can
yeah,
get
I have shared my screen. This is my ArtStation page, and this is my Insta page. You can follow me, and doubts or anything like that, feel free to reach me out. I'll be more than happy to uh, share my experience and knowledge.
Uh, I request Siva Kumar to give a vote of thanks. And before that, I just have a couple of things. Thank you so much, Vichar, for your amazing insights. We usually have uh, all the global artists coming up for CG meetups when we do it online. We have been also doing it physically after this lockdown. So we have already recently done activities in Bangalore, Pune, Hyderabad, Indore. We are soon going to do a lot of activities in cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Chandigarh, Nasik. We are going to have a session in Kolkata on 12th of March. So I invite all the students and professionals to join the community of ASIFA India and empower themselves for more and more. Request Siva Kumar to just have the closing words. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay ji. Once again, Vichar, on behalf of each and everyone from ASIFA India committee and all the volunteers and coordinators, as well as from the audience, we want to thank you for this wonderful session. and for all your valuable insights and inspiration. We hope we get one more opportunity to do another wonderful session with you. So, yeah, thank you, Vichar, and
Thank you, Shiva.
have a good day. Yeah.
Thank you, Shiva. And once again, thanks for everyone, joining with me, and Asifa for giving me a wonderful opportunity. Have a wonderful evening and a weekend, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, Vichar. Bye, sir.